Greetings everyone. I'm wearing my Dream Big t-shirt. Dream Big, a country run by the people for the people. So this is one of the independent t-shirts which Cliff has created. I'm going to put the link below if you want to get your own one. Maybe you can see it a bit better. Dream Big. A country run by the people for the people. And there's also an independent message on the back. So I'm not just standing as an independent in Derbyshire Dales, I'm also promoting the idea of a change to the red and blue Punch and Judy show across the country, because there's 461 independent candidates standing for election on the 4th of July. And we are not politicians, or the vast majority of us are not politicians. We are just people who have had enough of the shit show and want to be a voice for change and pattern interrupt the kind of baton change, this swing from red to blue, which is, it's been the way of politics my whole life. I'm hoping it's not too windy to do this video, by the way. It's a little bit breezy this morning. But yeah, I mean, when I was a girl in the 1970s, I remember all of the strikes and being round a candle, and my dad had this little black and white battery operated television, and we sort of huddled around this television by candlelight, and there were kind of piles of rubbish in the streets with rats and Labour, and that was the famous slogan, I think, Labour isn't working, that brought Thatcher to power. Then, of course, Thatcher, started out well, didn't it? This kind of entrepreneurial new world, and the privatisation of all of those nationalised industries like British Gas, British Petroleum, she shut down the pits, so no more British coal, British Telecom, all handed over to the big corporations on the promise that that would be much more efficient, and it would make things make prices more affordable if they were run under the efficiency of big corporations. But of course, we're now living with that little disaster, with the cost of living crisis, and those same companies making bumper profits for their shareholders while the people suffer. And of course, Thatcher, let me turn around as it's breezy. The microphone's on the other side of the camera. And of course, Thatcher encouraged everyone to buy their own home, didn't she? Which was great when mortgage rates were low, but then suddenly mortgage interest rates soared. I remember like mortgage interest was like 15% or something crazy. So many people lost their homes in the recession of the early 1990s. And then, of course, she was ousted. John Major took over. And then, of course, it all swung in 1997 to Tony Blair. And I remember, actually, because I was running Red Letter Days at the time, all of the young people, like, yeah, isn't it great? The Tories are out, Labour's in. Oh, isn't it great? And I said, just you wait. I remember the 1970s, the last time Labour were in. And sure enough, we were once again taken to our knees with the banking collapse and huge banks making huge profits, squandering all the money, and we, the people, had to bail it out rather than the rich taking the hit. Did you notice? No, the rich didn't take the hit. We, the people, had to bail it out. So, of course, Labour lost that next election with if you remember, the Gordon Brown incident, where he met a woman who was out to buy a loaf of bread, and he had his microphone on, and he was like, "Who let that woman near me?" kind of comment. It was something like that. And of course, David Cameron, Shiny Dave, the new face of the new Conservatives, a kind of young Blair, dashing kind of hero, won the next election. And then we had the Conservatives, initially shored up by Nick Clegg, I think, was it? I can't quite remember actually. but I know that there was a coalition, wasn't there, at some point. And actually, I did an event with Nick Clegg, and I met David Cameron at that time. I was quite involved in the enterprise world and going to all these events. And both actually really nice guys, pretty cool, good-looking dudes, actually. But, of course, that all went pear-shaped with Brexit, and Dave resigns, Theresa May takes over, makes a hash of it, and of course, as predicted, Boris Johnson took the crown and won a landslide in the 2019 election. And it was really interesting because I got all the election leaflets through, well, all of them except the Lib Dems yesterday. They all came through to my house in Bakewell. And it was interesting because there was one from Sarah Dines from the Con Party. I now call her Sardines, actually. Just occurred to me, it never really occurred to me before. Maybe that's an old joke. Anyway, hold on, where's Kobe? It was really interesting where she was warning in this leaflet, the only vote you can do is either Con or Labour. Don't vote for anyone else, because every vote that is not for Conservatives is a vote for Labour. And at the hustings, we've done 4 hustings so far. She's repeatedly referred to us, the other candidates, there's 7 candidates standing. She's referred to us repeatedly as the vote splitters. We are the vote splitters. So according to the official narrative, there are only 2 choices, red and blue. And she warns in this leaflet that if you don't vote for Conservative, you'll give Labour a huge majority, and then they will use that power and run away with it with a blank cheque and erase all your taxes. And of course, that's exactly what Boris Johnson did in 2019. He got the power and he ran away with it. And boom, before we knew it, we're all locked down in our houses, being arrested by the police for not wearing a mask or having a cup of coffee on a park bench, and the people's rights were completely violated. Oh, and by the way, we were coerced into taking the experimental Britney Spears, you know what, under massive pressure, no jab, no job. And of course, that narrative is completely unravelling. 5 American states are now suing Pfizer for misguiding the public and the authorities, claiming that the jab was safe and effective when they actually knew that it wasn't. And we've had Fauci in America also saying that the 6-foot rule was completely made up, was not rooted in any science whatsoever. And at the time, I despaired because I could see the damage which was being done to small businesses, especially in the local area. And I repeatedly wrote to Sarah Dines, to Sardines, questioning, but just got kind of standard cut and paste responses written by the Cabinet Office. I mean, this is the thing, folks. Under this old system, they just want power. And once they've got power, they'll run with it. And both red and blue are aligned to the World Economic Forum. So it really is a Punch and Judy show. And according to the media, which is all aligned to big corporations, all big media outlets, radio stations, TV stations, even the BBC, receive huge funding, if not being owned by big corporations. I'm going to splice this bit of the video in because after finishing the filming, I realised I forgot to mention about the huge likelihood that if Keir Starmer becomes Prime Minister and Labour take over, that we will be headed into war, because this is the biggest threat that we're currently facing. He's already declared his support and allegiance to Israel, which is very worrying. And there's obviously a big narrative which is anti-Russia, pro-Ukraine. Now, let's remember that Russia is heavily allied to China. Their capabilities are way surpassing anything that NATO has. And we really do need to have some visionary, consciously aware leaders who are going to be a stand for peace as opposed to constant wars. So it's very worrying, the idea that Labour will come into power. And of course, one of the ways to eclipse the power of the people is to declare martial law. And we know that Keir Starmer was director of the Crown Prosecution Service, so heavily into that world of law. And there is a massive wave and uprising of the people who are asserting their common law rights. So I wouldn't put it past Keir Starmer to, when he comes into power, to push everything to war, because it's a very simple way for the powers that be. I don't mean to sound doom and gloom, but it is a very simple way for the powers that shouldn't be to wipe the economy, have a complete crash, and to remove the rights of the people through putting us into a war scenario. So we need to be very aware of that. And back to the main video. This is my little afterthought, but a very important one. So the reason why the independent candidates are the wild card in the deck is because of the massive disillusionment about politics, and particularly politicians. And in 2023, last year, there was an Ipsos survey carried out where 91% of the British people said that politicians were the least trusted profession in society, you know, way behind like estate agents and car salesmen and whatever. So there is a massive distrust in the entire political system, especially with the whole scandal around the gambling bets on the election, not to mention the Partygate, and also, turning to Labour now, just the way that Keir Starmer has managed the Labour Party. I mean, it is almost like a totalitarian fascist regime, isn't it? Bizarrely, the way he's treated Jeremy Corbyn, Diane Abbott, all sorts of people have kind of been booted out for not towing the party line. And it does seem like it's a bit of a fascist dictatorship. So we have to remember as well that Keir Starmer has publicly stated his allegiance to Davos over Westminster. Now that should ring alarm bells in you. This is not the Labour Party of old that we knew and loved. I actually voted Jeremy Corbyn. I voted Labour in 2019 because I was very impressed by his manifesto. But of course, he was completely savaged and smeared by the mainstream media. Of course, big corporate owned. I mean, this is the thing. The big corporate interests decide who's going to win. And with this red and blue Punch and Judy show, it's simply a baton change. So when one party is exhausted and is kind of run out of road, the other side takes over, and it's a never-ending red and blue Punch and Judy show. So I was speaking about that last night at the Bakewell hustings. That was our fourth hustings, and a lot of people did actually come up to me afterwards and thank me for speaking truth to power. And it's interesting, at the other hustings the other night, there was a lady in the audience who said to me, she said, I'm so sorry. She came up afterwards. She said, I'm so sorry that I didn't applaud and, cheer you on. But she said, I own a business in the local area. And if people knew my true views, then they wouldn't come and do business with me anymore. And that is the kind of sad indictment of our society. So I know at some level I'm cutting through. And I'm not attached, obviously, to winning. The probability of me being elected is very narrow. But what I am doing is pattern interrupting, and I'm speaking truth to power. That's all I can do. Just keep showing up, keep speaking out. 48,700 election leaflets are landing on doormats across Derbyshire Dales. Yeah, and it's been so fascinating. I'm so glad that I took the decision to stand. It's been completely bonkers. Obviously, I've put all my resources into this. I don't have any revenue streams from anywhere else if I'm not, doing other projects. So I've devoted my whole the past months really to campaigning and electioneering, and I'm so grateful to everyone who supported me and helped me to pay for the leaflets. You get a free Royal Mail mailing, but you have to pay for your own leaflets. So I'm super grateful to everyone who's contributed, and it really has been what's kept me going, and it also has been a masterclass in trust and faith and gratitude and appreciation, because I'm literally just appreciating every little drop of money that I have that allows me to keep going. Hold on, more dogs. So if you are able to support me, I'd really appreciate it. It's only a week to go now. The finish line is in sight. And then on 5th of July, on the new moon, we then decide what to do. And I say we because it's not just me. There's a whole group of us. Obviously Lynn Irving, Julie Tasker, Cliff Findlay is very involved in the movement. And we have had discussions about what's next. Obviously, not forgetting Roger. And let's give a shout out to Brian as well, Brian Smith, who is shouting us on from heaven, I'm sure. I've asked this morning when his funeral is. So I'll let you know when Brian's funeral is planned for. It's been intense. It's actually been quite exhausting and emotionally draining, especially doing the hustings. But I do feel that actually every candidate has done really well. So there are 2 more hustings. There's one on Monday, which I think is the 1st of July in Ashbourne. There's another one on Tuesday, 2nd of July in Darley-Dale at the Whitworth Centre. If you fancy coming along, if you are local, please do come along, say hello. And of course, the election is on the 4th of July, Independence Day, and who knows, this is the dragon year, magic can happen, and maybe the wild cards will come up trumps. Okay, lots of love, bye for now, have a great day.